a cop.
Send everybody you possibly can, officer, down.
To a massive manhunt on the ground and from the air for 3 suspects.
This story goes back many, many years, but we'll start it at September 1st, 2015. It started at Fox Lake, Illinois, where Lieutenant Joe Gliniewicz, radio dispatch, claiming he was pursuing 3 individuals. This was at 7:52 a.m. About 15 minutes later, officers arrived and other officers arrived, and unfortunately it seemed too late as officers were met with the gruesome sight of Lieutenant Gliniewicz's dead body lying in the marsh. What you are seeing on the screen right now is a very sped up part of the funeral procession, and I say part because the funeral procession went on for hours by officers from all over the country.
We all wear the same badge. We all do the same job. Again, fire department's here showing their support. We're all in it together, just serving the public. You know, one of us gets hurt, we all get hurt.
He traveled from New York City to pay his respects to a man he never met.
It's one big law enforcement family.
And it was law enforcement near and far that came to show their support. Inside Antioch High School, a poignant memorial to Joe Gliniewicz, the veteran. But it was the spoken words that showed just how much G.I. Joe will be missed.
When we were growing up, we all knew Joe was a hero. But now the nation knows he's a hero.
We broke the mold with Joe because he was a dad to about 1,000 others.
He was the kind of man that in the face of danger would run towards it while others ran away.
Now we know those bad guys never existed. It turns out the good guy, the hero in this case, was actually the bad guy.
This is the first time as a law enforcement officer in my career that I felt ashamed by the acts of another police officer.
Not only did Lieutenant Joe Gliniewicz take his own life and try to make it look like a homicide, he did it, police believe, because he was about to be caught stealing from the village. And a sign just removed from the lawn outside here, police headquarters, shows how many residents feel about Gliniewicz now. Forgotten, lied, stole, disgraced. He'd been hailed as a fallen hero, the popular policeman known as G.I. Joe. But investigators say Lieutenant Joe Gliniewicz was a cop who was robbing the village of Fox Lake and took his own life rather than be discovered.
Gliniewicz's death was a carefully staged suicide.
Just one day before his death, Gliniewicz was told a village audit would include the Explorers Police program for youth that he led and used as a personal piggy bank.
Thousands of dollars were used by Gliniewicz for personal purchases, travel expenses, mortgage payments, personal gym memberships, adult websites, facilitating personal loans, and unaccounted cash withdrawals.
But for weeks, police fixated on the theory that Gliniewicz was murdered after he'd radioed he was chasing 3 suspects through a woody swamp.
In the first several weeks of this investigation, there was nothing that we had that was leading us towards determining this as being a suicide.
Gliniewicz carefully left behind a pepper spray can, an open baton, his glasses, and a spent shell casing fired into his police vest, making it appear he was murdered before shooting himself in the chest. Investigators say only after combing through 6,500 pages of text messages from Gliniewicz's cell phone, 40,000 emails, and thousands of pages of his bank records did the financial crimes become clear. Investigators say at least 2 other unidentified individuals appear to have been working with Gliniewicz in his criminal enterprise. This criminal investigation now in the hands of the Lake County State's Attorney and the FBI.
While there were a lot of certificates and recognitions in his personnel file, Lieutenant Joe Gliniewicz had several suspensions and faced lots of problems on the job. He was accused of sexual harassment by a subordinate, and there was a lot of complaints of public intoxication.
The law enforcement everywhere, it's viewed as a huge betrayal.
A day after investigators reveal that Lieutenant Joe Gliniewicz planned to put a hit on Ann Marin, administrator for the village of Fox Lake, Lieutenant Joe Gliniewicz's personnel file is released. It shows there is a stark contrast from the hero he tried to portray.
There were a lot of red flags when I couldn't get answers to who's in the Explorer program. Do we have a roster? Do we have parent consent forms? Where are you going today?
According to his file, Gliniewicz was allowing members of the Explorer Post program to use police equipment and vehicles, allowing them to pose as police officers. There are also complaints of equipment misuse, like taking his family on vacation in a squad car. More troubling are accusations of sexual harassment by a subordinate and women claiming he touched them inappropriately at holiday parties.
Oh my God, it's insane. The more they pull out and put in the papers, they're like, why didn't anybody stopped this guy before.
Gliniewicz's file also shows that in 1998, he was accused of touching a woman inappropriately. He was also found drunk and passed out in his truck. And in 2013, a dispatcher says he intimidated her with a gun.
For the widow of the Fox Lake police lieutenant who staged his own suicide, and his widow is in court to find out her fate.
People of the state of Illinois versus Melody Gliniewicz.
The sentencing began about an hour ago. So far, we've heard from a witness who worked with their local Police Explorers Club, the same one Melanie Gliniewicz and her husband Joe were accused of embezzling money from. You'll remember this was a huge story from 2015. He had staged his own suicide to make it look like a murder. She was accused of helping him embezzle and ended up pleading guilty under a plea deal.
It has been turned upside down since September 1st, 2015.
A plea for mercy from Melody Gliniewicz, the wife of a disgraced Fox Lake police lieutenant who killed himself in the midst of an embezzlement scandal.
A judge today sentenced Melody Gliniewicz to 24 months probation for her part in the scandal.
The last thing I would have wanted to see was the program that had enriched so many young lives. I'd like to make it clear, I never took a cent from the Explorer Fund.
In 2015, her husband, Lieutenant Joe Gliniewicz, committed suicide and tried to make it look like he'd been ambushed in an attempt to stop an investigation into the Fox Lake Police Explorers Youth Program, which he and his wife had run for years. That investigation found tens of thousands of dollars had been stolen from the program to pay for vacations, meals, mortgage payments, and even porn accounts.
I didn't know my husband was commingling his own money into the Explorer account until he asked me to write a check back into the account.
But prosecutors put on a series of witnesses, including an FBI forensic accountant who testified that Melody Gliniewicz was aware and complicit in the embezzlement, and played video of her initial police interview in which she admitted to more.
I think she is minimizing clearly the depth and scope of her knowledge and awareness that the Explorer funds were being used.
In February, Gliniewicz pleaded guilty to one felony count of deceptive practices. She told the judge she and her family have already paid a heavy price, that she can't get a job, and they're still receiving death threats.
The worst is probably the continual desecration of my husband's grave.
The judge sentenced Gliniewicz to 24 months probation, meaning she won't get any prison time.
The whole history, it is a tragedy no matter what.